SpongeBob's 9th season is an odd beast. It can be split in two halves of nearly completely different quality. That's applied for certain seasons already, but 9's an interesting case where the production of the show received a major overhaul between 9A and 9B. 9A is a mediocre slump, the kind fans mistake Season 8 for being, while 9B is actually pretty decent, with those feel-good pre-movie vibes spreading across the series again. This can partially be attributed to Steven Hillenburg's return to work on the movie Sponge Out of Water, but also due to the new crew realizing what went wrong and fixing it in their own, sometimes unique way. Despite all this, I won't be splitting these lists in half or anything. Nickelodeon treats this as a full 26-episode season, and I will too for the sake of review. I'm Employee Emilian, and this is the top 5 best and worst SpongeBob Season 9 episodes. Number 5, Mutiny on the Krusty. This is no doubt the worst of 9B, which may be a good thing in some ways, as at least it has potential. The Krusty Krabs caught in a riptide and it lands in a new location, in a story that would be interesting if A, they went outside more often, and B, the characters were likeable. Mr. Krabs is just a one-dimensional tyrant, and despite being emotionally abusive to his co-workers and crusters, we're supposed to feel for him? Squidward only exists as another outlet for them to project their anger towards, and they spend the entire episode being flip-flops. Fine for a subplot if you must, but it's the only thing this episode wants to do, and it gets obnoxious. But at least this episode gave us this scene.
Well then, I'm gonna do the worst thing I can do to your old dime.
Oh yeah? What's that?
Spend it.
Number 4, Yeti Crabs. Talk about a lame gag plot. So lame that they had to throw in a monster just to give off the illusion that things were getting interesting. Seriously, take out the Yeti, who debuts at the halfway point anyway, and this is just about Mr. Krabs wanting Squidward to do chores, and SpongeBob doing them for him. That's all this episode was setting out to do, and they don't even do a good job with that, as none of the characters go through an arc of any kind. Squidward's still lazy and SpongeBob's still a workaholic, but they added in some childish Yeti shenanigans halfway through to fill up time. Even more insulting was that this was the first episode to air on American TV after Sponge Out of Water. Imagine being an 8-year-old kid who's just become enamored with the franchise, and this is your first new episode. It's beyond underwhelming. Now for the bottom 3, say it with me.
Little yellow book, squid baby, SpongeBob, you're fired.
We all know why they're down here, so I'm gonna make this a sort of lightning round. Number 3, Little Yellow Book. I don't know how they managed to make the resident jerk character too far, but they did. They tried to balance it out by making the Bikini Bottomites nasty hypocrites, but that only makes it worse. Who am I meant to root for? To give it the benefit of the doubt, it has a few good jokes. That chicken face caught on for a reason. Number 2, Squid Baby. The transition to HD worked miracles with making scatological humor even more of an endurance. Ignoring the horrid ending, the story makes no sense when it isn't being outright creepy, and the one joke they try to bash into your head is just painful. Squidward can't get his head hurt again or he'll have the mind of an infant forever, so the running gag is that it's constantly smashed in, for a poopy baby no less. This image is everything. Number 1, SpongeBob, you're fired. Whenever the old boring versus annoying debate comes around, I'll use this episode as evidence that boring episodes can be way worse. Even when I play this at double speed, the plot and dialogue and joke delivery is simply awful. The tone is all over the place, random ideas come and go like traffic, and most insultingly of all, everything goes back to normal because of the status quo, not because the status quo has a part to play in the narrative at all. It may be, fundamentally, the worst SpongeBob episode ever made. Not the one I hate watching the most, though it's dangerously up there, but it's the most broken and unfunny waste of the show's budget. These bottom 3 make this season really hard to redeem, but it's somehow managed. The good far outweighs the bad again, and all around the good episodes here are very engaging. It's cliche to say they feel like pre-movie episodes, and yeah, they don't feel like a one-to-one emulation, but a bit of that old-school magic came back to make the best list since Season 5. Speaking of 5s, here's the top 5, starting with number 5, Lame and Fortune. Taking a page from Frankendoodle, we've got another object works better magically underwater story that I wish they could do more. This time, it's about fortune cookies, and the stuff that comes true is fantastic. Despite me wishing it was more of the episode's focus, I like the direction they chose to go in, with Plankton rigging the cookies in his favor, even sending a death threat to Mr. Krabs. It really goes to show the effect it has on him and SpongeBob, and the mini voyage SpongeBob goes on to keep his boss alive is wonderful. This sea of fish is far from most lavishly animated scenes in the show, but they put emphasis on making it silly, which works to some degree. Number 4, Bulletin Board. One of the brilliant things about post-sequel SpongeBob is that it can deliver new, relevant messages while still functioning the same way it did back in 1999. This episode's about a bulletin board whose increasingly nasty comments cause trouble for the Krusty Krabs community. and anyone under the age of 40 knows it's an allegory for the internet. Forums, image boards, chat rooms, generic social media, it all relates to all of them. There have always been communication problems with a group-oriented right-send system, and this episode explored them in a hilarious and surprisingly heartfelt way. I can still relate to Patrick despite him causing 99% of the conflict. Not bad for 4chan the episode. Number 3, Planktons Pitch. Here's some cuter, more wholesome fare. Plankton adopting an amoeba that behaves like a dog. Spot is just a precious creature, and that's not all there is to him. He protects Plankton, loves him, even does an unthinkably good deed for him at one point. I'm grateful for the slightly stronger continuity the show employed from here on out, with more callbacks and returning characters, because this is such a great debut episode for Spot. He's returned a few times now, and it's always a pleasure seeing how he's doing again, because its introductory outing was so strong. Even if he didn't stick around, this would still be a wonderful Plankton episode that best captures what people enjoy about his more everyman persona. Number 2, Squid plus Une. One of the things that came back in this era of the show were more character-driven storylines. The kind that's hard to describe, but just that it's the characters that make the jokes by being themselves, not bootleg exaggerations for a few seconds. Squid plus One was my favourite of the bunch because this sort of writing fits Squidward extremely well. It's awesome seeing an episode where he and the people around him display either intelligence or lovable quirks, but the character flaws come naturally through their well-defined personalities, like when certain characters ignorantly lambast other people's passions. It's a brilliant Squidward episode, a brilliant character episode, and the jokes all land superbly. However, it isn't my go-to viewing from SpongeBob Season 9. That would be 2 thumbs down. I'm enamored with all the choices they made here, right down to the bare-knuckles concept of it all. SpongeBob being obsessed with giving thumbs-ups. That's pure optimism, and the story they make out of it is surprisingly impactful once he injures his thumbs from repeated action. Sure, it's a bit sappy, but that's what I love about this turn of events. It goes to show everyone cares about SpongeBob, and when he gets better and fights Patrick to get his job back, it's satisfying beyond words. Best episode in over a decade is putting it lightly. I think this episode perfectly encapsulates the reasons I care about SpongeBob, both the character and the show, the excellent comedy, and the lovable, colourful world. And that's the sort of reason Season 9, especially its second half, was the most enjoyed period of the show for over a decade. Steven Hillenburg wasn't the only guy who made SpongeBob great, but he was the only guy who made SpongeBob. And that mattered a lot to him and the rest, making it easy to like. It seemed like the show would be comfy like this for a couple more years, but then we got Season 10. Goodbye for now.